Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the 322 and 346 cubic inch flatheads. So I guess it'd be safe to say that this is a big block flathead. Some people might not consider it a big block because it's still not that much cubic inches, but look at this sucker. I mean, it's huge, it's ridiculous. All right, so there's not a lot of information on the interwebs about the Cadillac Flatheads. And when I was out at a show, one of my buddies had one in his drag rail. Super cool, super awesome. It's blown, sounds great. And he was letting me know that hardly anybody knows it's a Cadillac Flathead. They either think it's a Lincoln motor, the 337, or a Ford Flathead. And I just wanted to do a quick and easy video just showing the different characteristics of this motor, just so it help you identify it. It's really hard to tell the difference between the 322 and the 346 without taking it completely apart. We have some serial numbers on here that give us hardly any information at all, but there is a million characteristics that I can at least go over and show you. That's what this part looks like, that's what that part looks like. So when you watch this video and you're out at the car shows or a drag strip, you can walk up and actually identify what kind of motor this is and, you know, not call it a Ford Flathead. Now, there's a lot of cool facts about the Flathead Cadillac. So what I have is a 322, supposedly, because it came out of a LaSalle. From my knowledge, most LaSalles had 322 specifically. Very few of them had 346, which is the two different options that this motor comes in. The biggest difference really is just the bore. The bore on the 322 is 3.375 inches. The bore on the 346 is 3.5. Both of them have a 4.5 inch stroke, which is huge difference from the Ford. Huge difference from the early Ford Flatheads. To my knowledge, this was Cadillac's first monoblock engine. What that means is the whole block was casted together. They didn't bolt on the cylinder portion, they didn't bolt on the crank portion. It was all casted as one single block. These blocks came out in 1936, and I think they stopped making them around 1948, give or take, because these motors were also in the M25 and the M24 Chaffee tanks in World War II. The tanks had dual motors in the back. One motor would run one track, the other motor would run the other track. Super cool. I love that this motor is so embedded in World War II history. For me, history is the coolest part about these old school motors and cars and everything. Like my 42 Ford was built at the plant right before they stopped production and started making bombers at the Ford plant. So I love when the automotive history ties in with, you know, military history. So pretty cool that these motors were in tanks. Now this Flathead has a chain-driven camshaft and hydraulic lifters, which is pretty insane thing to say for 1936 if you compare it to what else was out there between the Fords and, you know, some of the other more higher end, more expensive options. So pretty cool that it had more modern type stuff rolling around in it that early on. But what is awesome is the exhaust comes straight up. The intake runners and the exhaust runners on the exact same plane. I can show you some pictures that aren't mine of people with this completely apart, and the intake surface just looks awesome. This looks like there's a million routes for the intake to go, but really it's intake and exhaust coming straight out the top. And what I'm super excited about on this build for me is when I make headers for this, my headers are gonna come straight up out of the hood. Always like that look. I thought it was kind of cool, like on a roundy round car or demolition derby car. You know, they always do crazy stuff like that. Well, this one will be actually way more practical to do it that way, opposed to running it up to the front how it is and down out the bottom. So you have to have a huge engine bay for something like this. So let's just go right down the list here of everything. So we have this cool 2-barrel carburetor. We have a choke. It looks like it's hooked up to the exhaust. So once the exhaust warms that choke up, it turns the choke off, which right now it's not working at all. Huge, huge exhaust manifolds. Really big exhaust manifold here, a big connector. Then it dumps it out on the passenger side, and I think it'd probably just run right underneath the frame right there. I'm not sure. I haven't owned one of these until now. This is the first one that I've owned. And the distributor is on the back. It's really cool. It has this really tall shaft, distributor shaft here. Vacuum advance, which is really nice. We have this big T that holds the manifold, intake manifold and exhaust manifold down to the surface. We have this really cool valley cover with what looks like a vent coming out of the back of the block into the valley. So that's pretty cool. Now if you look at it from the very back, I think this is a huge identifier of a Flathead Cadillac, other than it just being ridiculously big, is how you can see it's kind of shaped like a Y block a little bit. The block comes up significantly up past the valley there, so they, the cylinders and everything are way up high. These heads, I think these heads are absolutely beautiful. I love the little character line going all the way down them. They're ridiculously huge. The water outlets come up here from the top in the very front, kind of like an APA, but obviously these are, I don't know, maybe smaller, similar size to the APA outlets. I'd have to measure it to know exactly, but kind of does the same thing. But the big difference is there's only one water inlet coming in from the bottom here, and there's only one water pump driven up here on the front. We don't have a pump per side. This pump comes from the bottom of the radiator, obviously, and pushes through the whole block to the top here. If you look at this bare block with where the water pump goes, it's super obvious that this is a Cadillac Flathead just because there's one big hole for just one water pump. So we got our fuel pump right up here up front instead of on the back of the motor because our distributor's back there. Fuel pump here, glass bowl. It looks huge. I mean, this motor is huge, so, pretty big fuel pump. Cool looking design. I just think everything about these motors is super neat. I just love how they did everything back in the day. I guess I'm just addicted to old motors. Now check out this oil vent back here. So it kind of looks like we have two vents. We have this one down here that's connected to our tube that goes into the pan. That's exactly what all it is. It's just a vent. There's nothing in there. Just a little baffling. Then check out our dipstick. This thing is ridiculously huge. Check that out. Huge dipstick with a breather on top. So 2 breathers coming from there. Now this might sound silly, but personally I love that the oil pan is like flat on the bottom. This motor is sitting pretty safely on the oil pan. It's not hurting anything, and it's nowhere near tipping over. It's completely flat and it sits awesome. So, having a bunch of motors laying around in your shop, it's nice that I can just set this one on the ground and not worrying about tipping over on myself. So that's it, guys. Just a glance looking at the Cadillac Flathead motor. We're going to get into it more. It's going to be a little while before I get to this project. I have a lot of things lined up, but I'm excited that it's here. I'm excited that it's in as good condition as I thought it was going to be, and I'm excited to get to work on it, even though it's just going to be sitting around for a while. But I hope you guys learned something, kind of know the difference when you walk up on a 337 compared to a Cadillac 322, 346. Yes, there are some similarities, but there's more differences than there are similarities when you start breaking it down an item at a time. So stay tuned, guys. A lot more information coming to the channel.